Yes, that was okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing? Very good. Well, we're broadcasting from Lloydell. I'd like to get a few things out that we have coming up here in July 16th and 17th. I'll be teaching a class in the assembly hall. It'll be on mediumship and healing, and we'll do the healing involved in it. We're doing the mediumship. We'll do some meditation. It's hands-on, and for people that really want to experience it, that would be a wonderful class to get into. I think you'd have fun with it because we're actually going to get people doing what I'm teaching and not just the idea of seeing it on the internet or in some form like that. I think that would work out very nicely. We're broadcasting from Lloydell, New York. Here, we'll be here all summer. Friday, the camp opens, and we'll have everything up and running here Friday. I know the maintenance people have been going crazy around the grounds here trying to catch up and get everything in order. So we'll see how that works out. But I look forward to seeing everyone. Let me open with a prayer tonight. Dear Father God, in all love and librarians, as we walk our pathway of life, we may accept and understand all obstructions before us, may deal with them in the highest and best way. May we be guided by the hand, the sight, and the understanding. Amen. Well, I think I'm seeing a few new faces. This is good. I think it's going to be fun to work with. I was going to start tonight. We have some thoughts. I've been meditating a little bit before we got on here. And one of the things came to me about astral travel and people meditating and stepping out of the body and traveling. I'll mention it in 2 or 3 different ways because I'm sure there's so many facets of this that people can experience. I've astral traveled since childhood. I remember flying over things, looking down at them. I would remember all those things happening. And I remember my grandmother teaching me when I was just a child. She'd say, when you're in a sleep state and you're going to rest and you're really going to go to sleep, I many times would have a little jolt where I'd feel like I'm stepping out of the body, or I had a little sensation of falling. And you can have that happen either when you're leaving or when you're getting back. I think most people experience it when they're getting back more. But when you're astrally traveling, you can set your intent and will to step out of the body. I don't know how many of you have had an experience of being above your body and looking down at yourself, or an experience of walking through your home and realizing you weren't in your body doing it. I've had that happen countless times in my life. And I know a lot of people right now are opening up. And I've had so many clients that I work with that have commented the idea that their mediumship abilities opening up, healing abilities opening up. There's so many things happening. The veil between the spirit world and us in the conscious world, I really feel has become very thin. And it's really pretty amazing some of the things that are coming through, and that we're changing plateaus of understanding. We're changing plateaus of acceptance. I know there's so many people that have been a little fearful of their abilities to pick up on spirit and what's coming through. And I think the one big dividing line that we have is, do we feel it and we know it's spirit, or are we sometimes debating it and thinking, how much am I thinking, or am I concerned over it, worried over it? In what form are we letting ourselves disrupt our own ability to go further? You know, if we pick up on things, I've had it happen astrally where I'd step out of the body in a meditative level. And as I'd step out of the body, I was in a conscious way setting intent. Like someone I knew at one time, they were ill, they were having a lot of problems very seriously. And I went to them astrally. And this gentleman happened to pick up on the fact that I was there. And he said to his family, I think it was his daughter and his wife was there, and said, I feel like Greg is here. And she called me later that evening and said, this is the time we were at the hospital. And he said to me that he felt your presence. and we had quite a conversation about, the idea of healing and synapse and healing. Now, we can synapse and healing without astrally traveling to go there, but we certainly can synapse and healing, whether it is the conscious level we're putting into it in a healing level, or are we actually traveling there and going there? I've had many reports of people saying to me or calling, like when I was a kid, my family, they used to call my mom and say, well, Greg was here last night. He had his hands on my feet or he had his hands on my forehead. And it's something that I know that Spirit helped me and took me as a tool to work with someone to help them with healing energy. So I think we all astrally are going through some transitions. Now, I'll just, since I can see your faces right now, what I'm going to do is say, how many of you had an experience where you thought you were out of the body? Okay, that's a lot. And how many of you had it happen where you literally left your home and you were somewhere else in the astral state and you experienced being somewhere else or walking through a home, for example? Okay, quite a few. So that's interesting because I really feel the veil between the world, the spirit world, and us is really opening up more. I've had moments where I could feel the energy change and I would see dimensionally changes and shadows and movements that normally you'd have to be in a deeper meditation to experience. And I've been noticing that's happening more and more. I feel not only with the whole COVID circumstance occurring, but think of it this way: how many thousands of people passed over? Now, I realize not everybody died of COVID, but I mean, I'll just say it in the time span this COVID has been this big thing that it's been. I mean, there's thousands of people who passed. And I find that they are reaching a point on the spirit side and wanting to definitely reach back to their family and they want to communicate and express the fact that they love them, they're there for them. Because sad to say, there was quite a few people died alone. And the families are in very much a heartache energy of thinking that here their loved one passed away and they couldn't be there for them. And then the loved ones that are passing away, couldn't have that last connection and sharing with them. I've already had a number of readings where people have come through that died of COVID and they've reached out very strongly. And I feel like if you look at the numbers they're talking about in the world, not just here in the States, but in the world, and how many people have passed over, that's an enormous, enormous connection with spirit. I believe they're working with us more. And the loved ones that are going over, no matter what religious belief system you've had on the earth plane, no matter what you have had in a sense of like little fears. I had a lady come through recently that was Jehovah Witness. She was terrified of her own death. She had an experience where she stepped out of the body and experienced being in heaven and came back and survived and was conscious and talked about it. And at one point, she's thinking, the devil was doing things and deluding her. And then she found out her daughter was talking to her because the daughter's a spiritualist. So here's the daughter explaining to the mother that is Jehovah Witness what happened and why it happened. And it was giving her a glimpse of heaven. And for her to no longer look at things in a fearful manner and be afraid to leave the body. And when the lady left the body, she immediately came back. Now, I've read for the daughter and the mothers come through, and she said how amazing it was on the spirit side that all of these understandings we have here, that at times can be fearful, at times can be, like say rules or religious guidelines and rules that limit us in trusting what we feel. It's almost like pulling us back from what we're trusting and what we need to be trusting. And I feel all of us are being put to the test on a daily level of how much are we going along with and truly trusting what Spirit's giving us. Because I know every one of you have had some intuitive feelings about events, family, people around you, whatever event it may be in your life, it doesn't matter. But I find that when we're traveling out of the body and we really experience that, that's a huge step we take to trusting what we're feeling and it shows us that we can do it and that those things are very, very real. I had a lady tell me one time she was Catholic, been Catholic all her life, her family been Catholic, and they were really terrified of the idea of anything mediumistic. And her priest said to her, he said, this is how he put it. He said, I have someone I want you to go talk to. He said, I understand what you're experiencing. He says, but please go to Reverend Kehn and he'll explain to you what's happening. This lady was traveling out of the body and visiting her relatives, and the relatives are thinking they're dreaming that she's there. And in reality, she was actually stepping out of the body and appearing to them and showing up around them a lot. And her mediumistic ability was amazing. And when she came for the reading, I was sitting here and I did a prayer, just like I did earlier with the opening of the session here. I did a prayer, and she looked at me and she goes, "Thank God you said a prayer." Because in her mind, we need to be speaking to God and we have to reach out to God in that loving manner. And that God is the vessel of guidance and words for us. And I said to her, I said, I always say a prayer. I always believe that God is helping us, guiding us, uplifting us, healing us, warning us of things to be cautious and careful of. And it seemed to break the ice where she really opened up then. And, she sounded like a spiritualist with the idea of dreams and all the experiences she's had that she could feel comfortable and safe opening up and talking about. Now, I'm sure each one of you have had some things occur that would be really special to you, and that maybe some family or friendships around you wouldn't understand it. But I feel like there's such an increase. Even the people that are really not understanding it are beginning to open up and have things happen. I had a gentleman come here just a couple days ago, and he's interested in healing, but he wasn't too open to mediumship. And I said to him, I said, well, I said, we can do healing. I said, I can work with you with the energy healing. I said, but I do have a few messages for you before we start the healing. And 3 individuals came through that were the people he had the most difficult time in life with and missed and lost them to passing. And that it was a painful, painful energy for him that he had never really got over. And here we are talking to them. They're giving him messages. And when we ended the messages, I said to him, I said, now we can work on healing. And he was sitting there crying like a baby. And he said to me, and he's this great, big, brute, strong man. And he said to me, he says, I have never in my life cried. And when I said to him, I said, that's a healing energy. I said, we're already doing the healing. I said, because the people that you were connected to that you had such a difficult time losing and feeling that it was gone forever, I said, here they are. They're showing you love, support, and caring, and they're sharing the healing energy with you. So, what are we healing in our hearts, our minds, our emotions? Where have we had events in the past or a loss in the past? Now, loss meaning someone passing over, or a loss in a sense of family friendships, mother daughter, father son, whatever form it may take. Sometimes I've seen families have big disruptions where they wouldn't have communication. Believe me, I know we deal with everything on the other side of life, meaning on the spirit side of life. We come through the earth plane and we're dealing with it here in a conscious level because to some degree, we didn't get everything dealt with. And now, when we're here on the earth plane, we're now faced with certain circumstances that have a big impact on us. And we're needing to understand that we can handle them here or on the spirit side. And if we put out that thought and energy, that we have that purity of thought of saying, I'm asking to understand this and work with this and bring the highest, most positive outcome. As we do that, it's really going to make the difference we want to have in life. Now, I know people talk about COVID and they've talked about the idea of, being so secluded on your own to some degree. But I feel that whole shift is occurring now where we're coming into the new normal. And I want to say the new normal is another plateau spiritually, because whether the people realize it or not, we've gone through a lot of changes. And I'll explain it this way. There's a plateau of energy we're used to and we function well in. And on an intuitive level, if I feel certain things, I know what they mean. And there's no question about what it means. We follow it and we're able to go with it. And that means all of us. Now we're shifting plateaus, not only due to COVID, but the energy changes in the world right now. We're shifting plateaus to a new plateau. How many of us here have felt very discombobulated, almost confusion at times, and also had some experiences of feeling like what I used to feel is a little different now? I'm feeling it and I'm thinking it is coming to me, but it's a little different now. And it may mean a little bit different too. And this is where we're going through that shift from one used to be plateau to the brand new plateau. And we'll become just as comfortable there as we were in the other level, but it's a higher level. We're more aware and more in tune. I'll ask you to raise your hands. How many of you have literally felt that sometimes you're picking up on so much it can be almost overwhelming? Quite a few. And when we recognize that, now everyone has their different timing of how things occur within each one of us. But as we look at that energy and realize where you were on the other plateau, you're now shifting to the new plateau. We're doing that on a spirit level also. We're not doing it just here in the conscious mind. I mean, we're doing this at a soul level, a spirit level, looking at things at a soul level. The soul mind, and I want to say this is a part of our soul energy. We know why we're here and what's going on and what we're needing to learn and accept, and all the experiences we have coming. Our conscious mind, sometimes when we step into the earth plane, we have this free will part that says, I'd really like to escape some of these things. I don't want to deal with that. That's horrible. And we start pushing things away instead of accepting them and saying, what am I learning, growing, and progressing in? I feel now if someone is trying to push things away, it's going to come back at them very strongly, and it's going to be even more powerful for them to have to handle. So let's look at it lessons in life as the more we readily allow and experience and grow from it, the more readily we're going to have the calmness in our life. And it's going to bring more peace. I've many times said to people, instead of having a mountain, we can have a speed bump in learning. We don't have to have a mountain to climb. And we many times get caught up in the idea of we prioritize things on the earth plane through our conscious perception. And our conscious perception is sometimes way off. And if we start looking at things where we're dealing with it from a soul mind level, and what am I learning from this and growing from this? When I was talking about astrally traveling, I believe there's many times I've seen the future. I've had many experiences where I would see lessons before they happened on the earth plane. And when I would step into them on the earth plane, I remember instantly what I experienced on the spirit side and what I was needing to do or learn, or what steps I needed to take in that circumstance or lesson. And as we do that, it makes such a difference. So let's practice with the idea that we're putting out the thought to spirit that may I be aware and understanding of the guidance you're giving me. May I put out that energy during the morning when I wake up. And to me, I want to put the energy out and say, please show me, guide me, and help me understand what I'm experiencing for the day. And may we bring the highest, most positive energy into every circumstance, every meeting of a person, everything we're learning. May we move through this in the smoothest and healing manner. And if we can set that intent every morning, and that way we start our day from that harmony, we're then continuing the harmony through the day. I'm sure everybody has what we proverbial call a bad day, but I feel if we're looking at it as what we're learning, it becomes a good day because we then put things behind us and it's over with. We've learned it, we've accepted it, and we moved on. And that's what we're needing to really look at in our lives and really understand is we have all that ability to do that. And we certainly can have the harmony and the calmness there. It doesn't have to be a tragic or upsetting energy. I just happened to speak to someone today, and I said to him, I said, the gentleman in their life is having a lot of problems with health. And I said, we'll put out the thought in prayer and that they can be uplifted by what's going on around them. And I felt the energy with this gentleman that he was stepping in and out of spirit. He actually had an experience of passing and coming back. And he's in grave illness, but he passed and he came back. And I feel he's making a choice to rally now and at a soul level made a decision to be here. And on a conscious basis, I know he stepped out of the body and he experienced it. And the wife confirmed it for me that he had stepped out of the body in the hospital and they had, in quote, lost him. And he came back. But it was an interesting energy to know he understood that he really did step out. And it has changed his whole perspective on what his belief system would be and how things really work. And we're needing to recognize we don't have to have something tragic or a huge thing happen for us to awaken and be in tune. If we want to, we can send out the thought that in a meditative way, we can, in a conscious level meditation, we can step out of the body. I've had it happen many times where I would step out and be in the same room, but just be out of my body looking back at myself. And my grandmother taught me that when I was a child to practice projecting your aura and be able to see your aura, because once you get into a very relaxed state of mind, you can see the aura. I see auras around furniture and chairs and whatever it may be, inanimate objects. I see that around flowers and plants. I see the living energy. So when we're in a meditative state, if we reach that calmer and depth level, it's going to work so well for us to be able to see the energy in the auras. Now, I believe there's different levels of aura. I mean, I've seen people's auras, I've seen plants and animals' auras. I can pick up on things at times with people. If something's wrong with them, you'll see a darkness in the aura in one part of the aura or something around an animal. I've had that happen many, many, many times. And we're needing to realize that we have all these abilities, but when we're dealing with the consciousness of the earth plane, we're so caught up in the everyday stuff that we really slip away from how in tune we really are. And we also slip away from learning to trust ourselves with what we're feeling. How many of us here go through the feeling of debate over what they're feeling? Because you'll feel something and then you start thinking, well, did I think that? Did I feel that? Is that what Spirit's giving me? And we start analyzing. Well, we literally lose the essence when we start analyzing. And if we do that in that form with everything we're doing in our conscious mind, it just makes a mess of things and we pull back from our own ability. And we're needing to trust our own ability. I feel that having a clarity of mind and doing a meditation and then pose a question to yourself, that when you pose the question, it may be an event going on in your life, it may be relationships in your life, and you put out the question, how can I handle this? In what way can I make this better? And then the first feeling you get about it is usually the purity of what Spirit's giving you. And it's not just you analyzing and then dissecting it. I have a few times in my life dissected things. And when I dissected it, boy, did I have a mess. And that's something we're needing to recognize, that we're having to follow through on what we're really feeling and to create that limited space for the answer to come through. Now, what I mean by limited is we pose the question, and the very first thing that pops in our mind, we need to follow that and test that to see if that's really the answer. But we're needing to test it by trusting what we're really feeling. I have a gentleman that taught healing, and he said to me one time, he says, he's the biggest mistake we have is to think about it. If we start thinking about it, boy, can we muck it up. And we're needing to have that trust level that we don't think about it. It's just what you feel, you go with. One of the ways of doing that, would be able to think about someone. Now, I'm using an example of health and healing. If you were thinking about someone that's been in need, you already know that they've had some illness or something, and you do a little meditation. And a lot of people can do this easier than just doing it in their mind. You do a little meditation, whatever comes to you, you write it down. Doesn't matter what it is, you try not to analyze it at all as to what the events are and just go with what you're getting. And I remember one time doing that, and I sent to the lady, I said, you're having all these energy problems. And I said, your energy is very low. You're having a difficult time with that. I said, but what I picked up when I meditated was looking at the glands in the body. And I said, the thymus gland, and there's a gland problem. And I said, please have it checked out. And she did. And she found the problem, and it was really throwing things out of whack in her body. So it's something that I wouldn't have thought that because I'm certainly no doctor, but it's like that's what came to me randomly. And when you have that happen where it just pops in your head, make a note of it. Whether you make a note in a tangible manner or you make a note in your mind, let's make a note of it so you're following what you're feeling and you write it down. The first feeling you write down, and you try to go to another posed question then, and you have a series of questions you present, and then the first feelings is what you go with. I've had it many times where someone would say to me, I have an illness and what's going on, asking me what would be happening. And I sometimes didn't talk to them on the phone or, do the Zoom. And I would be thinking about them. And then I'd call them back and say, these are the things I pick up. And I felt sometimes there's more clarity in that than trying to talk to the person because you're dealing with their emotions, their conscious level, their confusion level, and the fear level. And sometimes it depends on each person. One of you or two of you may have that work really well. And another level, somebody may want to be on the phone and talk to them. And that's something you're needing to follow through on as to what you're really feeling. How many of you here have either been involved in Reiki or some form of healing? Would you raise your hands? Okay, quite a few. I feel an energy around that my grandmother always taught me healing is healing, and to not think about it in a way that it has to be a big procedural level. I know that in Reiki, there's some procedural level and different levels you work with, which I think is wonderful. And I think it's healing and very, very, very needed. And I know there's a lot of people, I was always taught that I just put my hands on the person. And when I put my hands on the person, now you can do absent healing also, but when you put your hands on the person, you just go with what you're feeling and see where the energy wants to go. And when I was a little kid, probably, oh my God, 7, 8 years old, my grandmother said to me, she said, you put your hand on their shoulders or on their head, and all you do is ask God to flow through you. And if the little toe needs help, it's going to receive the healing and not worry about it. I've seen some people go through some pretty major gyrations of swinging her arms around and moving around the whole body. And I mean, I thought one lady was going to have a heart attack. She was flipping around so much. But it's something there that I really believe that we're needing to relax and know that God's energy is going to go exactly where it needs to go. And the biggest part of it would be us setting our intent. Once we set our intent, the flow is going to be there. I remember traveling out of the body and visiting many people over the years and working with healing. Now, when I was very little, my grandmother taught me to work with healing that God needs a guidance or needs a certain, let's say, physical person to be there. And those energies can flow through you and you're a conduit. And I remember sending out a thought and prayer to God when I was just really, really little. I said, if God can utilize me in any way needed for helping healing someone, I'd be so blessed and so at peace with doing that. And I had put out that energy and thought, and this is when I was just a little kid. Now, I believe part of me being a little kid was the idea that I had such a commitment to it, and it was so completely believable and understanding and meaningful to me to help people. So there's countless times I've woke up and remember being at someone's home or standing by their bed at the hospital and working on someone. And I remember people calling my mom, and it happened a lot where they'd call my mom and say, Greg was here. He visited with me. And I find that the thought of prayer and intent is to me almost one and the same. And we do the prayer and intent and have that flow of energy there and then go with it, trust it. Don't keep debating the idea of what am I doing to make this happen? It isn't us making it happen, it's us trusting that it's happening. And when we allow ourselves to have that trust that it's happening, we've set the intent, we've put out the thought. I do a lot with absent healing, and I send out the thought for the person. And like I'll talk to someone on the phone, or maybe I've read for them, and I'd say to them, well, we'll send you healing. And I immediately have that thought in my mind. I'll focus myself on the first name of the individual that's ill and focus that thought there and just put the thought out. And the first feeling that comes to me about the events that are occurring in their life, I just send out thought and prayer with and the healing with that they be blessed and helped. And I let go of it. Now, I have a little statement here that I found funny when I was a kid. My grandmother always said to me, she said, remember, if you're going to write a letter, she says, you don't keep writing PS because you'll never get it mailed. And we're needing to realize that if we're sending out a prayer and thought, or we're setting intent, set it, let go of it. Don't keep hanging on to it and writing PS. I have something else to write onto it because we never get it sent and never gets delivered. And we're needing to have that thought and awareness that that's a form of purity. We feel it, we send it, we're done. Let it go. And as we let it go, it makes a huge difference. Because if we sit back and debate it, or like I've had some people say, well, I was sending energy and I got very exhausted. Well, God's energy flows through us freely. It's an abundant energy that never ends. And the only time we're exhausted is because we exhausted ourselves. And we're needing to recognize that our body and mind and emotions that we exhaust ourselves is because we're trying to do it on our own little battery. And we're trying to force our will to have that happen instead of it being a circumstance of it being a flow of energy of God's energy. I was always taught that God's energy is endless. I don't get tired of reading, I get tired of sitting. And I find that that's energy flowing through. And the focus of sitting, sometimes on a conscious level, I sit so much, focused on things that it bothers me a bit. I need to go do something else for a little bit. But I find that energy so meaningful to recognize it flows through us. Don't think of it as something that we have to build up our energy to share that energy. I've seen some people with a concept in their mind that the one lady said to me, she said, well, if I do 2 healings, I'm exhausted. And I said to her, I said, well, I was certified in a healing temple here in the Dale when I was 12. And my teacher always said to me that God's energy is absolutely endless. There's no such thing as it running out. And as a child, I understood that concept. And that's something that I've always worked with in that form. And I think it's wonderful to realize not only are we not doing it in our own, let's say, some people, I look at some of them as a little bit of ego stepping in and going, I am doing this. Well, I'm the vessel, but I'm not doing the healing. It's God's energy flowing through me that does. And I've seen it many times where how many of you have had experiences of either in a dreaming state or just like waking up, or sometimes little kids will be going to bed and they'll have this happen. You'll see faces, and the faces will be there that you don't necessarily recognize. They're not family members, they're not someone you know right away. By us putting out the light and the energy that we're putting out to be in harmony, we're actually a beacon of light on the spirit side to draw those that are in need, that we can send out that energy. I've had it happen in circles where I'd be working in a circle, a meditation group or a development group, and I would see entities standing on the outside of the circle learning from what we're doing. And they were learning from what we were doing and coming closer and being brought to the light. And I always include a prayer asking that those who are watching and witnessing that need to understand, please allow themselves to share, learn, grow, and understand. And may the angels come and help them go to the light. And I have seen that happen countless times. I remember a group in Florida that I was down in Bonita Beach, Florida. I had a home there for like 28 years. And in the Coconut Road, um, let's see, the offices, the executive suites on Coconut Road, I had an office there, and I teach classes in the one big room. And we had like 35 people there. And out of the 35 people, I bet you we had 8 people. They would say to me, why do I see these people standing behind the other side of the room? They're standing behind the people at the table. And I said, they've come to learn. I said, they left the body and they didn't understand what was going on. And they didn't have an understanding spiritually that we have here. And they're coming to learn from us. And I said, we need to send out a thought of prayer. And I would put out the prayer in a verbal manner so everyone could share with me and work with that same prayer and invite the angel loved ones to come with the light and to help them, guide them, and uplift them. And I had a number of people comment to me that it's like, I just saw someone turn into light and leave. And they said they turned into light where it had been a shadow form. They turned into light and they left. And I feel that each of you in your own way, whether it be in a home you've lived in, or whether it's just a feeling around certain areas or certain people, send out that intent and thought that whatever souls are there that are in need of light be surrounded and filled with light, that they may travel and move on. And it's something that I watch that happen. I wouldn't say every circle, but I've had it happen many times. So they're just amazing. I commented one time, I was teaching for a school over here. I taught when I think it was probably 46 years now. I taught for them. And I was saying to the group, I said, does anyone notice you feel like you're being watched? And a number of them said, yeah, I've been turning my head and looking like there's somebody behind me. And I said, well, they are. And I said, look across the circle and send out the intent and thought that you want to see those souls that are witnessing and watching us. And they were standing just outside the circle. And a number of people said, oh my God, there's forms all over the place. Well, I said to him, I said, doesn't it feel like there's a balcony? And I said, the balcony is around us and they're all sitting and watching. And I said, some of them are here observing and some of them are here in need. And we'd always put out that thought in prayer to bring that harmony and to help people understand. I've had messages from other mediums that came back to me and said, when you had your circle, there's a lady here that's so pleased and so happy that you were able to help her. And she didn't come through in a message. There wasn't a loved one sitting at the table. It was a circumstance that she went to the light. And we're needing to realize we have all those abilities and powers to do this and to work with this. We're needing to give it space and time to allow it to occur. Because in many levels, we don't allow things to happen. We're so caught up in the physical world. And if we can let that happen, it's going to be a wonderful experience for all of us. And as I said earlier about we're changing plateaus, how many of us here have felt a little overwhelmed with some things we pick up that comes in so strong and at times so much that we have a little confusion as to what it is or who it is or why is it happening. And we're having those things occur because if we move up a different dimensional level, we're needing to understand that we need to set up new filtering system to filter out what we need to filter out so we have the clarity of one thing at a time. I know a lot of you have had too much happen at once, and sometimes we get too much happening at once, we automatically shut down some. And we need to realize we don't need to be shutting down. We need to be open, but do it with a filter system. I refer to things at times as an arm's reach. We keep it at an arm's reach, and we keep that ability to have that space that's our own quiet, peaceful space. And, my grandmother always taught me we can have harmony in the midst of chaos. And we're needing to look at the world, and certainly we can see some chaos, and certainly we need to have the harmony. And we're an influence that overpowers other things that are disruptive. If we allow ourselves to focus on that harmony, it's going to make such a difference for us. When we're astrally traveling, I'm sure each of you at times have had a feeling of coming back to the body, or didn't realize you'd come back to the body, but you'd wake up on a jolt or wake up like a feeling of falling. And I work with children at times where I've had that happen, where they'd be talking about, well, I'm flying, I'm going places and I'm flying. And I find it fascinating that we all do that. It doesn't matter what age we are, or even belief system. I had a lady one time that she'd gone to her priest and she was praying with her priest, and she said, I'm having these things happen, and the devil's deceiving me, trying to deceive me. And the priest worked with her and calmed her down and recognized that the spirit loved ones that were coming to her was her family, and they were also Catholic. But when they got on the other side of life, they realized and learned so much, and they wanted to share with her and get her out of the fear state of mind she had been in. And she ended up coming for a reading. And the first thing that happened was it was like endless souls coming through and describing who they were for her. And she was really good at knowing who the family was generationally, and she picked right up on it. And she finally said to me, she goes, if my priest can believe the way he believes, and he believes in you and what you do, and said it's of God, I guess I have to go with this. I have to allow myself to trust it. Because she would readily see people during the day while she's completely awake and conscious. She'd see people stand in front of her or be by a doorway, and he would explain to her that the loved ones are there and you're blessed with a gift of being able to see and know they're with you. And to always put out that intent and thought, if you have something to share with me, please give it to me in a way that I may understand. And if we're going to have awarenesses during the day, let's ask that they bring it to us in a way that we may understand. And it's going to make such a difference for us to bring the harmony and the happiness we really desire. And with all these things that are happening in the world right now, it's going to get crazier yet. I mean, COVID was one thing, and we're moving through that quite well. And we're going to move beyond that. I would say the new normal is coming pretty rapidly. I know when we left Florida, everything down there was just back to normal in a sense of functioning. And up here, there's still some rules and regulations and people being in fear a bit. But I think it's something that we're going to bring balance in our lives, and to allow yourself to know the changes you're experiencing is a part of your progression, and to not feel the resistance to it or fear that how come I'm not in tune? How come when I feel this, it isn't what it used to be? You're changing that level of dimensions of understanding, feeling, and awareness. Trust it, go with it. And the signals you're getting will come through stronger. And the more you trust that first feeling, I think the more you're going to be right on and to go with that. Now, I was going to ask you, I know my wife said there were some questions, possible questions here that she had received in the email. So we'll start with one of those and we'll go from there.
All right. Does Greg have a quick, easy definition or distinction between spirit and soul, maybe analogy? And to clarify, I'm referring to the incarnate being have spirit and soul, as in my spirit and soul, and not referring to spirit with a capital S.
Well, we need to realize that we're all connected at a soul level. And there's an understanding we have at a soul level that on a conscious level, in many ways, we feel divided or separate. And sometimes divided and separate, we also feel a little alone. And it really depends on the connection with others. I believe this whole COVID thing has forced us in one direction to be away from each other, but now it's bringing us together in a better way where what's important, what's the focus we need to have here in sharing, caring, where are we investing time, energy, love, and emotions in our life? And to look at the soul level. Now, when I talk about God or spirit, God and spirit to me is one entity. It is an energy that's all there. Now, the spirit loved ones that come through is a dimensional level that they're in, they're learning, growing, and progressing. And at a soul level, we need to understand that we, at every level in our soul thinking, our soul awareness, we have that awareness and it's God's guidance. Here we are, we know what we're here for, we know what we're doing. Conscious mind is not always in tune to that. And I refer to it as trying to catch up. We're trying to figure it out. And if we allow ourselves to go with our intuitive gifts, our figuring it out is going to work really well. And on a level of our knowing at a soul level, I believe, yes, we're individuals. Yes, we function individually, but there's a deeper level that's a soul level that connects all of us. And if we're looking at life in that manner, we're going to bring more harmony to us. You know, I find with people that I see people like, for example, a simple thing of opening a door for someone, they look at you, and I notice it with people. There's certain people that there's a response with, there's a harmony. We're at a soul level connecting. And another person, you open the door and they look at you like, what do you want? You know, what are you doing? And what'd you do that for? And I find myself like grinning over that because when I see that, I'll just say hello to them or I'll say God bless and I just walk by. And I plant a seed of that loving wisdom energy there that there's no string, there's no manipulation, there's nothing powerful wanting to maneuver. And it's something that some people don't know what to do with that. And, you know, I had a friend of mine tell me one time, he lived in New York City all his life, born and raised there. And he said to me, he goes, you cannot walk down the city streets in New York City and smile and say hello to everybody. And I said, well, why can't you? He goes, they're going to think you're crazy. He says, everybody looks straight ahead, and that's the only focus they have. They don't even look in the eye. And I said, well, I think that's horrible. I said, I think it's something that it's sad that so many people function in that form. And I said, I like the whole energy that you smile at people, you nod at people, you share with people. And it's not on a tangible physical level, but you're sharing with them. You know, I was in a restaurant tonight and there was a gentleman sitting there. And I looked at him and he had his big cowboy hat on and a big beard and everything. And I nodded to him hello. And he nodded right back. And it was like a nice flow of energy. And there's other people you look at and they look at you like, what do they want or what are they doing? And I just find that it's so sad that people function in that level, or at least in their life, they've had some experiences that lead them to believing and thinking in that manner. You know, it's very sad in my mind to see that happen. You have any other questions?
One more question. Janet would like to know, should I pursue mediumship or Reiki?
I really feel mediumship is healing, and I feel an energy with the healing energy that you do it in Reiki or you do it in what other title or form you want to. That's wonderful. But I feel that's a part of mediumship. I just had a couple here a day or so ago that they came and they said, we're here for healing. And I said to him, I said, well, I know Spirit wants to share some things with you, and then we can do a meditative level in healing. And the gentleman sat here and slept like a rock. I mean, he just went out completely. He was sitting here snoring. And he woke up right at the end of the time span we had for the reading. He woke up and he looked at me and he goes, oh my God, I was gone. And I said, yeah, I said, that's healing. I said, it's a wonderful energy. And I said, I don't know if you notice a real change of energy at the moment. I said, but I could see the energy flow going into you and the hands on your shoulders and on your head of the spirit loved ones working with them. So if we're going to look at things and realize Reiki is wonderful, all the healing arts are wonderful, and that we're needing to realize that's all a part of our mediumship. I don't divide that up. I mean, I know some people divide it up and they'll say, well, here's the focus for healing and here's the focus for messages. I've watched so many things occur in my life reading for people. I mean, one gentleman was here, and this is a couple seasons back now. He was here. He came in with a cane, and he was really needing a cane. And he sat here, read for him, got all done. He jumps up, he takes off, he walks down the porch and starts down the street, and his wife had to come back and get his cane. And I just laughed because I know what was happening, and I realized what Spirit was doing, because I felt this tremendous heat energy pouring in. And he was sitting there and he said to me, he said, "Are you warm?" I said, "No, I'm fine." And he goes, "My God, I'm sweating." Well, I know the spirit world was working with him and he had this tremendous flow of energy going into him. And he gets up and he walked off with his cane. And he wasn't limping when he walked out. So I just find it fascinating how many things can happen in that form. So I really don't divide that energy. I think if you're going to do Reiki, that's great. And whatever form, you want to do healing in, I think that's wonderful. And it's really a need to let it happen. Do we have any other questions?
No.
No questions? Now we're down to almost the hour here. So what I'm going to do is open it up. If someone has a spiritual question, that is not necessarily a private reading type question, but if you have a spiritual question, please raise your hand and my wife will take care of turning you on and we'll be able to talk. Anyone want to raise their hand with a question?
Janet.
Hi, Janet.
Hi, my question is, do you think a pendulum is worth to like enhance trying to get a message
Well,
using a pendulum?
I think you can use a pendulum in a wonderful way, and I feel it can be something you can do. I know a gentleman that he's passed a spirit now, but he used to do Bach flower remedies. And he had a dream where he was using a pendulum to diagnose what was going on and what he needed to do with the Bach flower. And Spirit brought through a wheel and had it divided up more than a pie, but a lot of slots in it for all of the Bach flower remedies. And I used to spend time with him, and he would do a gallon jug of water for me, and he would use the pendulum. And he would go, "What's needed?" And then he would go, "How many drops you need of that particular one?" And he'd use the pendulum to do it. And he had a wonderful chart made up that he used as a guideline. Now, as far as messages go, with the idea of using a pendulum, it's easy to get the yes and no. That's fine. You pose the question and you have the yes or no. That works good. And if you're doing it in a way where, say, for example, you're on the phone, you're talking to someone, they're posing a question, you could use a pendulum to say yes or no to what's going on.
Is the pendulum controlled by spirit or by your own subconscious?
I
Because
really
I heard
feel,
it was your own subconscious.
well, what I feel
Oh.
there is if you're really working with it in a pure manner, I believe that it's a higher level soul, your soul, their soul. There's a connection of energy that's giving you the correct answer. And it's not just your conscious mind, it's a really a deeper level. And I know some people do it and they do it consciously and they come up with the answers they want, you know, but that's again where we need to trust the purity of what we're getting. But I think that could be helpful. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Anyone want to raise their hand, have a question?
Linda.
Hi, Linda.
She got to unmute. Unmute, Linda.
Unmute, Linda.
There she goes.
I just did. I mean, I don't know how to put this in the spirit way, but I am concerned greatly about our democracy
Yes.
and about what's going on in our country.
Yes.
And I have put action towards that. And also I understand that politics can take away spirit, and it
Yeah.
needs spirit.
Yes.
And so I have tried to, so it's not more about me, it's just a concern about what are ways that we can do to help our country, which is greatly in trouble.
Well, let me say it this way. If you go back to President Washington and you go back to Lincoln, there was circles being held in the White House with mediums, and that there was part of the guidance and decisions he was making was guided by spirit. If you go
I
back
would
to
agree with that.
Lincoln, Lincoln had a room that he would set the people up in a circle, and a medium would work with him that he had obviously worked with for years and trusted. And that when all these huge events occurred, like the freedom of everyone and all these things, the war and all, that came through in all these messages. And it was showing him how to do and what to do. And that's how he was successful. And it's something there that on a politic level, we have so many people right now, and it's been this way for quite a while. I would say an incredibly high percentage of them is functioning from a greed, conscious, manipulative level. And they're all their own little aggrandizements of what they want to do. And I believe that the people of America have to have it bad enough before everybody wakes up. And we have to have things happen that is really going to be earth shaking to us for us to finally turn around and say, where did the honesty go? And where did the intent go? And in what way are we needing to do this? And I don't care for politics at all. I try to ignore that as much as possible, but I'll say it this way. The talk about roads and bridges, and they mention roads and bridges, but there's only 6% of billions going towards the roads and bridges. Everything else is all the favoritisms and what all these other guys want. All right. And it has nothing to do with roads and bridges. And they don't talk about that, but they talk about roads and bridges. Well, I find there's such dishonesty, at a soul level dishonesty, of these people functioning in the way they are. And the world around us, if you notice all the narcissistic people in power, I don't care at what level, what business, what part of the world we're in, there's a narcissistic, greedy energy prevailing right now, and people see it. And it's coming out stronger and stronger and stronger. And I feel like that is a catalyst for us to make the changes we're going to make and to move forward spiritually and emotionally in a much more positive manner. I also believe we're going to have quite an awakening when people finally get a grip on this and make the changes necessary.
Okay. Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome.
And we have another question. How do you work in a healing way with children?
Can you pose that question more directly?
Hi, Greg. I work in a hospital setting with kids, and
Yes.
they're not seeking, service from me for healing service.
Mhm.
But what I would like to do, oh, sorry. What I'd like to do is be able to set the intention and have that, sorry for the background noise, be able to have that intention set. And I just wanted to know if there is a way to fine tune that.
Well, I would look at it this way. Let's put out the thought and energy that when you're dealing with the children, your heart energy, love energy, is there and foremost. And it's a level of trust. It's a level of healing. It's a level of understanding where they are and where they're coming from. And that you're there in a loving, comfortable manner, even a fun manner, because I believe you already have in your heart now the love and the energy to share, and you're sharing it. And I feel you're doing a wonderful job of that. But what I felt with the little children, what ages are they?
They can be of all ages up to, 0 to 24.
Okay. Well, I'll put it this way. The loving, sharing energy that you have in your heart center, and you approach it in that loving, giving manner, You're letting God's energy flow through you that brings peace, brings love, brings harmony and calmness. And you're doing it in a completely non-threatening manner that they could not possibly make a mistake and think of anything you'd be doing would be threatening, that you're coming from a pure love level. And as long as you're doing that, which I believe you're already doing, it's like, that's wonderful. And you just look into their eyes for a moment. I've had it happen with children where you can't get their attention. And I would stop them for a moment and look in their eyes. And I'd say, how are you? And they just look at me. I go in restaurants. My wife and I are in a restaurant, and there was one little girl. She kept turning and looking at me and looking at me and looking at me. And even the parents were like, "What's going on? This kid keeps looking over there." And the child was seeing my aura and my energy, and was incredibly drawn to it. And that's something that I find happens all the time. And I've had it happen. I was at a blessing in a Catholic church one time. They were blessing the baby, and the whole family could not get the baby quiet. The baby was screaming and crying the whole time, no matter who held him. And I wasn't really like, quote, family. And I walked over to the mother, and the mother was just beyond herself. She didn't know what to do with this kid. And I said, "Here, let me hold him a moment." And I held him, and he quieted right down. And he's cooing and laughing, and everyone in the family is sitting in the pews, and they're looking and they're just shaking their heads like, I don't know what happened here. Well, I felt the energy there with this baby, and I had such a deep connection that the priest walked over and he did the blessing while I had him in my arms. And I handed the baby back to the mother, and he finished the blessing with her. So I didn't say anything, but the priest said to me later, he said, you have a connection with that little boy. He said, it's very, very special. And this is a Catholic priest telling me that there was a connection there. Well, I remember a little bit later in that little boy's life that he would see his grandfather and his uncles and different ones that passed. He would see them and they'd step into his room. Well, his mom called me in a panic one time, and she said, "Oh my God, Greg," she goes, "I know you understand these things." She says, "Could you please help Nicholas? He's having these," she says, "I don't know if it's dreams or what, but they're coming in his room, and he's afraid of these people coming in his room." And I said, "You put him on the phone and I'll talk to him." Now, it's like 11:30 at night. He'd been in bed a while, and he woke up and they were standing there. So here I am talking to him, and I said to him, I said, the older man that's bald headed that makes the faces at you, I said, that's Grandpa. I said, that's your mom's dad. And I'm explaining who they are. And I said, now you have the ability to set a perimeter. If you want them at your doorway instead of right by your bed, that's okay. You can do that. You can put out that thought for that. And I said, and they'll abide by it. And I talked to him about all the entities he was seeing. And when he'd get up to go to the bathroom, he'd come out of his room, and it was just a very short 4 or 5 feet to the bathroom door. And he looked in the spare room, and here's all these people in the spare room. And he was afraid to come out of the bathroom. And his mom's talking to him, and she called again. And it's another night. And I talked to him and I said, well, listen, I said, remember, I said, you were a little afraid of them being in your room. I said, so they don't want to bother you or frighten you. I said, so they went to the other room. And I said, they wanted to appear to you so you could see them and know that they're there. And I said, they love you. They're there for you. They're supportive of you. And to be at peace knowing that. And as I put out that thought and energy to him, he said, well, Grandpa said to me that to please don't be afraid. We're here. We love you. And this little boy started figuring out that Spirit's there. And throughout his adult life now, because he's got to be probably in his mid-20s or even 30 probably, he experienced all this and he understands it. And it's always helped him. So when you're sharing the love you share with the children you're dealing with, they don't have to be your family. They could be complete strangers. But you're giving them something that no one else has given them, and they'll respond to that, and they'll always remember it. There's an imprint of energy of love that you're sharing, that imprint lasts. And they make comparisons then between, now I'm going to say it in a more solid manner and say, here's people that you would look at as a more negative energy, or people more positive energy, or people I feel I should trust, and people I feel I shouldn't trust. And the children will pick up on that energy because they recognize your energy in comparison to others. And for you to keep sending out that love and energy is wonderful. Please do so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? Alrighty. Well, listen, next month, we're not going to have the class on. It'll be the month after. And the next month, I have too many things here in the Dale going on. And I will be teaching a 2-day class the 16th and 17th of July. And it's going to be really, really hectic here. Everything's picking up. We're opening up Friday. So I know it's going to be a little crazy. So this next month, we're not on. But if you look at my website, the website's going to show you where everything's at, when it's going to be happening, and you can contact them. And God bless you all, and let's have a wonderful summer. Goodbye now.